What up? What up? What up? What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Mic Check Podcast. This is Q. Just wanted to go live for a little bit, talk about a few things, a couple of things in boxing news going on today, as well as a little bit of a controversial topic, updated pound for pound lists. Um, it's always a debatable topic when you get into talking about boxing pound for pound lists, obviously, because a lot of these guys are not going to fight each other. And then everybody has their own kind of take. There's not a strong definition one way or the other on what makes you pound for pound versus what doesn't make you pound for pound, what makes you better than another guy. Is it head-to-head matchups? Is it resume? Is it number of accomplishments? Is it amateur pedigree? Is it a combination of all of those things or any of those things excluded? So we're going to get into it, man. We're going to talk a little bit about some of that. We're going to talk about a little bit of this whole face of boxing topic that everybody has been kind of giving their own 2 cents on. Is Gervonta Davis, after his fight with Ryan Garcia, now the quote-unquote face of boxing? We'll get into a little bit of that. So, y'all stick around. We'll get some feedback, some live chat comments going and everything else. So I appreciate everybody that's going to be hopping on or going to be watching this after we're done. So, yeah, man, give me a couple of minutes here to pull this up and then we'll get right into it, man. We will get right to it. We'll start with the pound for pound list that I posted not too long ago. Actually, I think this was yesterday, maybe this was yesterday or 2 days ago. I can't remember when, but it was in the last couple of days. And boy, I tell you, man, it has really, really got a lot of people either agreeing. What's going on, Karma? What's going on? Appreciate you joining. It's been a very controversial topic because some people don't agree with my take on pound for pound. Some people don't like the idea that I may not have their favorite fighter as pound for pound. But, I mean, it is what it is at the end of the day. Everybody has their own opinion on it. Dang, I don't know why I can't get this to come up. Why is this giving me a hard time? But yeah, man, there is a fight happening this weekend. I was actually supposed to be at the Virgil Ortiz versus Amantis Stanionis fight here in DFW, Texas, this evening. But because that fight got canceled, they rescheduled Williams Zepeda to take the main event, and I got a refund. I'm sorry. I like Williams Zepeda. He's an entertaining fighter, but I paid to see Virgil. I wanted to see him against Amantis Stanionis. I wanted to see if he was going to be able to become, the next guy in line for the WBA title, when or if Spence and Crawford ever get their fight going on, or if Crawford and Spence are not going to be able to have that fight if Spence is going to vacate and move up to 154. Obviously, that would have made Virgil, the man in line to get the WBA title. But it's not going to happen. So, it is what it is, man. So let's see here. What up, Jules? What up, man? What up, man? I'm going to shoot the link here in just a second. Let me see. There we go. There we go. I'm actually going to post it in the chat here for those that would like to join. Yeah, Karma, I mean, it's a decent fight, but it's a fight I'm going to watch on TV while I'm watching some playoff basketball. That's how I look at that fight. When you talk about Williams Zepeda against Arboleda, I can't remember the guy's name, but I'll go to the fight whenever Virgil gets rescheduled. But this was not the fight that that I was planning on having, so having to go to. Let's see what up. Let's see.
All right, what's good, bro?
What up, Isan? What's good, man?
No, that's not Eson. That's me, man. I just wanted to troll him and remind him that I took his money.
It's bugging out. Yo.
Yo, you can hear me? You can hear me?
I don't know why it's not letting me share my screen. This thing is giving me a hard time today. Easiest with 2 monitors. Yeah, man, my stuff is wigging out. 1 second.
I have commandeered the live. You are now, yeah, comma, I commandeered the live.
You. Let's see if everybody can hear me, man, because I'm having a horrible time with this. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. All right, there we are. Shoot, man, this my internet would wig out the minute I got to do a live, man. Golly, shoot,
Yeah, my StreamYard was
man.
acting up last week too. Mine was acting up last week. I couldn't see none of the comments. It wasn't like updating the comments in the comments section.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. I don't know what happened, but literally, I was trying to share this screen and it wasn't going through. But anyway, man, welcome on, man. Appreciate your time, man, coming on and everything like that. Appreciate it. I'm gonna try to get this rebooted on my computer as we talking, man. But you've seen it. You've seen my my pound for pound list. Everybody has a little bit of a debate about, when and where people go. I know we have a fairly similar mindset. I know you have more of a strict idea on when it comes to guys who are current world champions, and I understand that angle. But man, I mean, it's really not a clear-cut way. But the one interesting thing I will say is that people have seemed to really not like the idea that Canelo is still a top 5 pound for pound guy. And they're even trying to say now that, man, his resume is not good enough. And I'm like, if we're going to compare his resume to somebody else's, who are we comparing it to?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, but I think that that's just when you're in the position that Canelo is in, and you're that highly polarized fighter, whether it's Floyd or Manny or Oscar. This happens to any guy that ends up in Canelo's position to where the views are polar opposites, that you're either doing everything right for some people or you're doing everything wrong for some people, that nothing you do, no matter what it is, you're just not going to get any credit for it with some people. And Floyd was in that position. We all remember that there were people that no matter what he did, it just wasn't good enough for some people. So I just see that with Canelo. And I don't like to spend a lot of time on that, because it is like you said, that different people have different ways of arriving at as far as who's pound for pound and why. So over time, I kind of just focused on my own way, because it is to a degree, it's opinions to a degree, but it's like nobody keeps the same energy. I do, because I'm from space, but humans don't keep the same energy, because look at all the bullshit they put Jermel Charlo through to finally let him on Ring Magazine's pound for pound list. And you think about that, and it's like, well, wait a minute. If you thought that Vasyl Lomachenko, for example, fighting Roman Martinez, because after he knocked out Roman Martinez for the WBO title at super featherweight, I think it was, oh my God, he's pound for pound. Look, he's fighting for a title so early in his career. So clearly the title was the yardstick that made you say, this guy competes at a certain level. And then we look at Jermel, and it's like, well, wait a minute, Jermel, he became undisputed. He beat Tony Harrison and won his belt back. He beat Jason Rosario. He fought Brian Castano, 2 fights, but he did beat him. And it took a while for Ring Magazine to say, yeah, he's pound for pound. But with Vasyl Lomachenko, it was out the gate. And think about it. Who did he fight for his first title? It was a vacant title. Gary Russell wasn't the champion. The title was vacant. So you didn't even beat a champion to be a champion. And then the second title, then he won. And bear in mind, I'm not shitting on Vasyl Lomachenko. I'm just saying that Ring Magazine's logic was very inconsistent, and it's not across the board. And that's why you often hear me say this. I don't abide by their list. It doesn't make sense to me, and it's just a popularity contest.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, and we'll run down the list that I have. I wanted to share it on the screen live, but my computer is just literally not acting right today, so I'm going to have to do something about that. But for me, man, when it comes to pound for pound, it's clear that I don't have any preferential treatment towards a promotional company, a nationality of fighter. Ultimately, I put these guys based on 3 things, really. When you talk about the number of quality wins, when you talk about beating current reigning world champions, accomplishments over time in their career, and then where they stand currently and what's their most recent accomplishments that they have been able to achieve. If you put all those 3 things in the same bucket, and you have a high level of performance in all 3, that's going to make you pound for pound on my list. So I'll go through it for everybody that has not been able to see it, and I do apologize to everybody that is watching. that I hadn't been able to share the screen. You can go to my Twitter and look at it because it's booming right now. It's got almost 100,000 views on this one tweet, which is crazy. But I got Inoue at 1, Usyk at 2, Canelo at 3, Crawford at 4, Bivol at 5, Jamel at 6, Beterbiev at 7, Spence at 8, Taylor at 9, and then I got Haney at 10. And since I've posted this, the only thing I think that I would change based on what I've seen currently is I probably would have changed Taylor and Haney and put Taylor at 10 and Haney at 9. I think that in the last year, obviously we saw that Josh has not fought yet. He has a fight scheduled, so at least there's that. But his last fight was not a very good performance. And a lot of people would argue that Haney's last performance was his best performance of his career. So I think that would switch him. But ironically, I posted almost the identical list to this back at the end of 2022. And the reason for that is because a lot of these guys have not been fighting. I mean, Inoue's had one fight. Usyk hasn't fought. Canelo hasn't fought since. Crawford, I'm talking about since the start of the year. Crawford hasn't fought since the start of the year, even though he had a fight in December, so he gets a little bit of a break there. Bivol has not fought since the end of last year, so maybe he gets a little bit of a break. Jermell is the one that I'm really starting to get a little bit concerned about because his last fight was in, what was it, April or May of last year? I think it was May of last year. And we're about to reach May, and there's not even a fight scheduled yet. Archer just fought this year, so he's rock solid in his position. Spence is in the same boat as Jermell. He hasn't fought since last April. There's no fight date planned. There's a rumor that he's going to fight Crawford in July, but we all know not to hold our breath on that. Josh Taylor has his fight scheduled, so that's going to be early part of May. And then Haney has his fight scheduled for the back end of May. So a lot of these guys have not fought in 2023, and we're already almost, through the entire, well, basically we're through the first quarter. We're into the second quarter of 2023. What do you think has been the major issue with all of these guys, man? I mean, it's tough to continue ranking these guys when they haven't fought in 5+ months.
I think that's just a testament to the times that we live in, because what all these pound for pound fighters, what's consistent among them is that to some degree, they're on the same pay scale. To some degree, they're of that higher pay scale among pugilists. And that pay scale only makes it possible to fight with so many times a year. When you're expecting $3 and $4 million at a time for you to do a fight, based on how things are now, well, you're only going to get out there but so many times. Then there are other things, like in the case of Errol Spence Jr., injuries, extenuating circumstances. I will say that among the pound for pound fighters on your list, or the fighters that are considered pound for pound across the board, consensus pound for pound fighters, Inoue would have to be one of the more active ones, because, a lot of these guys, Inoue, and I'll say Haney, because it didn't take long, after he beat George, it didn't take long for them to do the fight after that. So he's been on a nice, steady schedule of activity. But Errol, this has been the story of Errol for years now. Terrence has been fighting once a year for the last 3 years. Usyk's been fighting once a year for the last 3 years. And this is the story for many of those fighters, and I think it's because of their pay scale. These guys make a lot of money every time they get out there, and that kind of makes it more difficult to get them out there, to make fights for them. That you get paid so much, the networks aren't going to want to put up with so much money, or difficulties in negotiations, or maybe you were negotiating a fight but it fell apart, like Crawford and Spence last year. And I think that's just the story of those guys because of how they get paid.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, what it's starting to tell you is that, in my opinion, I think that a lot of the promotional companies and these promotional outfits are having a hard look at their finances. They're having a hard look at what they're spending, how often they're spending, and kind of the expectation level for a lot of these guys. Unfortunately, when you have, you make that, that one fight, like I'll use a perfect example. Ryan Garcia, right? He is a guy who will now have made, I don't know, 8, 9, maybe $10 million from his last fight that he gets to take home for himself, right? After he pays his team, after he pays for whatever, his camp, and after he does all that stuff, his cut to his promoter, all that stuff. Um, when you look at that realistically, he's going to want that every single fight moving forward. And there's just not going to be enough of those type of fights for him. So you're going to start seeing him go into that same boat as well, where he's going to be fighting once a year because that's the only thing that they can afford to do for him. And he's not going to want to take a pay cut. He makes, and especially Ryan, because he's a guy who makes money outside of the ring. He's a guy who has sponsorships. He's a guy who has other things going on in his life, obviously, that have taken some of his attention away from boxing. I think he's going to be one of these guys in this same boat. Not that he's he's a pound for pound guy right now at all. Obviously, he needs to prove himself at the elite level. But when you talk about inactivity amongst guys we want to see in the ring, he's going to be joining that boat really, really quickly because he's made a lot of money in this one fight. And he's probably going to be expecting that's what he should make moving forward.
And he's kind of already on that boat. It's good that you brought him up because if you think about Ryan, he really is inactive. The common denominator between the activity of a Ryan Garcia and some of these other fighters is true. He's not a pound-for-pound fighter. He's not a champion. But what does he have in common with some of these aforementioned fighters? He's a seven-figure fighter, you know. And you see that guy don't fight that much. And just like you said, based on the commercial success of this past weekend's fight, he's not going to want to go backwards on the money. So that's going to end up affecting his activity moving forward, where in reality, you need to go backwards on the money because the commercial value of a fight is not the same across the board. What you make with a Davis is not going to be what you make with everybody else. It's a different fight, different commercial value, and especially for him, who really is not a developed fighter. He's not a finished product. He needs to be more active, but because he's focused on the money and doesn't want to go backwards on it, yeah, that's going to create problems for him. You know, he's not where Crawford and Errol are right now. You know, he's not a guy in his mid-30s who's been fighting for titles years and you're not that guy. You need to fight more often. But getting all that money in one lump sum from, one show, it makes it harder to do.
Yeah, man. We got ATL, Unanimous Boxing Sports in the building, man. Appreciate your comments and your feedback. He says that Terrence messed Spence's schedule up. Okay, well, let's roll with that for a second. Let's assume that that's true. What's keeping Spence from having had that Thurman fight since it got rumored in January?
I mean, you know how I feel about this, bro. I don't want to do it because but I'm just gonna be like, look, let's keep it real. Bud and Errol were in negotiations with each other. Okay, mm-hmm. That means that both of their schedules were affected by what was going on. Not just one, both of their schedules. But Terrence Crawford was still able to have a run out against David Evanesian. And my contention is, well, wait a minute. If Terrence does not have the marquee value of a Spence and the resources of a Spence and the stablemates of a Spence, but he was still able to get out there at least once before the year was out. Don't blame Errol. Don't blame Crawford for Spence not fighting. We are 4 or 5 months into this year. What stopped you from scheduling Thurman for January, for February, for March, for April? What's stopping you? You see what I mean? And this is, you know how I feel about it. This is what Errol fans like to do. They like to be very obtuse and very linear. Nothing applies across the board. The logic is not salient. They're like, fam, if Errol the cash cow, that means you could pretty much fight anybody you want at welterweight. You can make almost any fight at welterweight. You haven't made any fight at welterweight. You fought once in the last 2 years. Once. What kind of schedule is that for a unified champion? That the reason welterweight is becoming more and more of a dud, and we're seeing less and less news and excitement for that division, is because of Errol. You got 3 of the 4 belts. Nobody get to fight for him unless you around. And nobody is getting to fight for him. You ain't even defending him. So, yeah, man, like, come on, don't put that on Bud. If you wanted to get out there, even if you couldn't get out there late last year, what was stopping you from getting out there in January?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, I think realistically, people have to start taking a hard look at the common denominator and everything, right? We've talked about this a lot. You've talked about it on your own channel. I've talked about it on my channel a little bit, as well as on Twitter a whole lot. when you look at the common denominators between these specific fighters that are constantly having issues with fights being made, right? And it happens with more than one fighter, right? It becomes a commonality that it's just common sense. This guy has to be a part of the issue. Maybe it's not him as the individual fighter. If you want to say, hey, listen, he's on a contract with this guy and this manager, and his team isn't good enough, and yada yada yada. But when we talk about guys like Tyson Fury, when we talk about guys like Errol Spence, right? Errol has had no issues being able to make the unifications that he's already had because he was set up that way to do so. Those guys were on his side of the street. They were less popular than him. They were guys that were basically strung along because remember, if everybody goes back and they watch that video of Crawford and Spence in Oklahoma City at that fight, that it was Mo Hooker was fighting. I can't remember who the dude was from Top Rank he was fighting, but the fight was at the Oklahoma City Thunder's basketball arena.
I think it was Alex Salcedo.
Yeah, Salcedo. There you go. Thank you, Salcedo. At that time, both guys, they both have a good relationship with Mo Hooker for various reasons, but they both were at the fight. They ran into each other. The reality is Errol said what he was going to do because that's what he was told to do, right? If he really wanted that fight when he wanted it, he could have had that fight 2 or 3 years ago, and we wouldn't still be talking about, well, maybe they'll make the fight. Well, maybe they can do it at a catch weight. Well, maybe they can do it at 150 pounds and keep the belts on the line and having to jump through these specific hoops to get it to happen. When in reality, honestly, this fight was a fight that should have probably happened like 2019. 2019 is when this fight should have happened.
I completely agree. I think that they completely misread the situation and willfully misrepresented it because it's just like you said. Errol literally told everybody what the plan was, and they keep pretending that they don't understand, or they just keep going with one side of the story when, like, yo, dog, Errol already told y'all that they wasn't trying to fight Bud yet. And y'all still trying to find ways and loopholes to make it his fault when the man literally told y'all that is not the immediate plan. That was not the immediate plan. I agree with you when you say that, look, this fight would have been better off happening in 2019 than now because interest for the fight was peaking at that time. Right now, it's a sore spot. It's almost a joke. It's like a running gag, like, oh, they might fight this year. Stefan Espinoza, he's optimistic. That's what we heard all last year, And if they do make the fight, I do think that people will get galvanized again if they announce it. But the energy is not the same because when y'all had that conversation, Brody, you didn't get hit by a car, Right. And you were a more active fighter in those days than you are now, where I looked at it as a fight, at least for me, where I looked at it as a fight before. I don't look at it as a fight now. I just think Crawford gonna knock you out. That's all I think. Like, I'm just waiting for that because on the schedule you on, how are you supposed to be sharp and good and strong and in tune and ready when you fought once in the last 2 years? You don't even fight like that anymore. Where Crawford had a fight last year. You can say what you want, but those kind of maintenance fights, those are important. The more you do something, the better you become at it. The less you do it, the more your skills and your ability and all that shit is going to degrade over time. Many times I've said it can't be getting easier for Errol to make 147. I was saying that shit in 2019. We're in 2023 now. So it's just a lot of shit there that I can't add nothing to it no more. I'm like, look, the only thing left for them to do is fight. Other than that, everything that needs to be said probably has been said.
Yeah, man. And I think ultimately that point you make at the very end is the unfortunate side of this fight because it's a lose-lose situation for Crawford if and when that fight happens. Because if he loses the fight, well, he lost, right? So he loses the bragging rights. He loses his belt. He loses, in a lot of eyes, some of his legacy, right? Because the fight has happened at a time where it probably wasn't ideal. And people have to be honest, like, Crawford still looks very good. He still has all of his skills. But the thing you can't fight is Father Time, and he's 35. Like, he's going to be pushing 36 this year for a fight that should have happened when he was 33, 34 at the latest. But you also got the other side of it. If Spence loses, people are going to jump to, well, he hadn't fought in a year. He didn't have a warm-up fight. He had the eye injury. He's not the same since the car accident. He needed to be more active. So there's going to be a myriad of excuses and reasons on both sides as to why one person lost or they didn't, when we could have avoided all of this by having that fight back in 2019. But let's go ahead and move on, man, because that conversation is what it is. It's been left there where it is. I will acknowledge this last comment that ATL made here. He says, I think he hasn't fought Thurman because he kept getting led on. Well, I mean, it's hard to say that you get led on by somebody when you're the A side. Your team is the one that's going to be hosting the fight, and then your guys are the ones that are making the offer. So if anybody was being led on in this situation, it would be the B side guy, the guy who's fielding the offer, and the guy who essentially at that point was just waiting for all the paperwork to be right.
Moreover, look at how Usyk handled the situation with Fury, and he's not even the A side in those negotiations. But when he seen, yo, what the fuck is going on? Like, what the fuck? You know what? We're done. And he said the shit. He's like, yo, we done, bro. Like, that's it. So I cannot believe that Crawford is leading you on. The money, the platform to do the whole show is coming from you, not Crawford. How the fuck can he lead you on? He can't lead you on. That don't. It's too much shit with that thing. And honestly, I'm like, bro, I'm over it. If they fight, they fight. But ain't nobody going to tell me that you the A side and you a cash cow and all these different things and you can't get nothing done. That's not how it works when you a cash cow. When you a cash cow, you a Sugar Ray Leonard. You a Oscar De La Hoya. You a Manny Pacquiao or a Mayweather. You get shit done. That's what's consistent with cash cows. Roy wanted to fight a fucking heavyweight. What did he do? He fought a fucking heavyweight. He wasn't the best one at the time, but that's what happens when you a cash cow. It's too many pretend cash cows these days that maybe you a big name at welterweight. Maybe you a big name to them welters, but in the greatest scheme of things, you're not really a cash cow because it's too much bullshit with you that is not consistent with being a cash cow.
ATL, man, welcome onto the show. Appreciate you joining, man. We'll let you out of the floor, man. You had some thoughts or something that you wanted to say in combat to what we've been talking about so far. ATL, is your mic muted?
Yeah, I'm here. Give me a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't even like I don't know with Errol, like it's just the whole thing is disappointing because I remember how excited everybody was when they was in front of each other. It was kind of like, I don't know, like Batman and Superman or some type of shit.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That was like the energy. That was like that, like, oh shit. Like it was just surreal to see both men in front of each other that like, yo, this is the fight. And you could feel that in the energy. If you looked at the metrics of all those videos when they was in front of each other, everybody was size. Now, that shit is like a joke, bro. Like, man, y'all could fight. And I'll buy it, yeah, but my energy not the same. I feel like ain't nothing holding Errol together these days but scotch tape and bubble gum. You know what I mean? That's just how that shit feel. Like, bro, like, you can't be an elite fighter on that schedule. You can't. You don't fight.
I mean, a lot of this is evident in the fact that, you know, Errol put in a request or his team put in a request or he was given permission to try to make the Thurman fight at 154, which we've talked about that before on a number of occasions. But if Thurman was the 147 mandatory and that's the whole reason that fight was supposed to happen, naturally that fight is supposed to happen at the weight that is prescribed.
Exactly, and what the WBC was allowing him to do in so many words was they was giving him a pass to blow the weight, which is highly unethical. How many other champions got to boil down to the weight where they hold a title and they mandatory? And what y'all was telling him is, look, you could defend your title at 154, and it's okay. It's too much bullshit with Errol's reign as a champion, and honestly, the welterweight division, for as long as I can remember, has been one of those divisions that always produces very good fights. That has not been the case the last 3-4 years. And I do correlate it to Errol because, well, you got most of the belts, bro. So when somebody want to become a champion, you the guy they got to go see. And ain't nobody seeing you because you don't even fight like that.
Yo,
What's good, man?
what's going on with you, man?
Hey, nothing much, man. Appreciate you joining. I know you wanted to
Yeah.
give some thoughts on this whole Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford situation, why he might not have fought in the last over a year now. You know, we just passed the year mark since his fight against Ugas. What's your thoughts on how everything has gone, man? Because ultimately, we were talking about pound for pound list. We were talking about why I slotted him down a spot since my last updated rankings about 3 months ago. I moved him from 7 down to 8 because he hasn't fought in a year. He doesn't have a fight scheduled. And it's looking like he's kind of just falling back to the wayside.
Well, my input on everything, man. Like T Word to tell you, I'm not just no Spence fan. I'm a boxing fan. Period. You know what I'm saying? I've been following Spence for a minute, and I've been knowing this man playing for years because he ain't did nothing but say what he wanted. And so by me saying that Terrence is holding him up, it's not saying that Terrence is holding him up just like, okay, he holding him up like that, but you got to understand this man been calling this man name after fights and after fights. They've been negotiating. When they were negotiating, that's when he dipped off and he fought what's Alvanesian without even really letting nobody know. You know what I'm saying? So at the same time, Spence thinking he gonna get this fight, and he ain't getting it. But that's what he really want. And if you think about it, we kept hearing negotiations happen. And I'm pretty sure just like we was all food that he probably feels, kind of the same way. So that's why I say that I feel like that's the only reason that Spence been inactive, because he really been trying to get this Crawford fight and it just haven't fell through. It just been mishap after mishap, even though just like you said, they supposed to have a date in July. I don't believe it. I don't believe they supposed to have no date in July.
I think they're gonna fight, bro. I do think they're gonna fight.
Let me jump in here real quick just because I had a question for you, ATL, man.
Okay.
Okay, so if we're gonna roll with the situation that Bud negotiated the fight back in 2022 in bad faith, right? If that's what we're gonna go with, right? That he had an alternative plan that he wasn't he wasn't transparent about up front, and when the negotiations went longer than expected between him and Spence, he basically left the negotiation table. We talking about almost 5 months now, though, ATL.
Yeah.
We talking about since January. So we talking January, February, March. We're at the end of April. There's no other fight been announced. They've been talking about him doing this Thurman fight, and as much as I disagree with the idea of him fighting Thurman for his WBC mandatory at 154, if that's the only other option that he has to fight at that moment, he should have done that. But I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm going to say this, and T and I have talked about this as well off air. I saw him at the Ryan Garcia Tank fight. It's very, very clear right now that he's not expecting another fight to happen, at least in the next month, to 2 months, because he's overweight. He's not overweight as a person, but he's over his fighting weight by a significant amount right now. So that tells me that for the last 4 or 5 months, he has not been in training camp very much. I know that they said when Anthony Joshua was training with Derek James, I saw that Tony Bellew went to the gym and Errol was there. He's probably just ticking over, just trying to keep in shape slightly. But I mean, if a fight doesn't happen, right, because Crawford fought Avanesian in December. So he had all of December for them to make a fight, all of January, all of February, all of March. We're all the way through April, and there's been no fight announcement. There's been no alternative for him. That to me says you either don't want to be active or your purse demands are too high for you to be active, which is what Ring IQ and I were talking about previously when we were talking about Ryan Garcia, because his expectations, I'm assuming Smith is not going to get out of bed and get in a ring for anything less than $9, $10, $12 million. I'm just assuming that. So if that's the case, then that's on Errol, because I'll tell you a perfect example. Oscar De La Hoya back in 1995, he fought 5 times in the same calendar year. He had 3 fights on pay-per-view. He had 2 takeover fights, and 2 of his pay-per-view fights were for his world titles. I believe those fights were at 135, I believe.
He was worth a lot of money, man. He was worth. Bro, I grew up in that. He's worth a lot of like. I could wholeheartedly say that losses and all, Oscar was worth a lot of fucking money, a lot of money, more than these guys is worth here today. And he
I
was
agree with
getting
that.
out there, and he was getting busy. And I just look. I look at, for example, it's some other unified champions in boxing, like Beterbiev, like Usyk, right? These guys got mandatories, right? So, shit didn't work out with Beterbiev and Bivol for the unification. Shit didn't work out with Usyk and Fury for their unification. It didn't work out.
Exactly.
Exact same shit, undisputed. And what happens? Well, that shit not happening, so Beterbiev got to go fight Smith. Motherfucking Usyk got to go fight Daniel. The show must go on. And Errol is the only unified champion that I see that the show don't go on. And I'm not going to say, oh, it's because of, like, nah, fam. You got a whole team around you, and you supposed to be the man to beat at 147. So there should be a plan B. There should be a contingency, which means it's not that there ain't one. Thurman is right there, bro. That man, he right there. If you want to fight him, you fight him. All right. This is that you don't want to fight. That's what I see. You don't want to fight. Nah, there ain't no way. All these other guys
I think
is making shit happen.
I think he don't want to fight Thurman too. And I told T Word, and we was in the chat one day about it. The only reason I think he really ain't fought Thurman is because, and just my opinion, back in the day, when Thurman was the champ, he avoided Earl. So that's
Right.
my only reason for thinking that's why Earl ain't just really jumping to fight him right now. Even not saying it ain't right, you know what I'm saying? Because that's what you're here for, the box. But I just still think he's got a chip on his shoulder from back then when Keith had the belt and was making him wait. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'll concede
think
that
that's
to
it.
you.
Let me jump in here. Let me say this then. Okay, ATL, I'm with you. I'm with you on that, and I understand that because there was a time where Errol was coming up. He wanted his shot, and he demanded his shot, and he didn't get it because he wasn't the WBA mandatory, so nothing could get mandated. He went the IBF route, and guess what he got? He got his shot at the title against Kell Brook. He had to go across the pond. He had to go to the UK and get the fight. Here's
Yep.
how we'll bring this all the way full circle. Why isn't he fighting Boots then?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. He can be fighting Boots.
And I want to
That's the
say
dude
this
to fight because that's the same way you got your belt. If you want to keep your belt, you got to defend them. You can't
and
just say, well, I'm not getting undisputed, so I'm not fighting.
Let's be realistic too. That look, I'm not going to idealize everything because life is not ideal, let alone boxing. If you saying that you don't want to do a Boots right now because maybe you think Boots got a high ceiling, maybe it's okay, cool. That's one of three guys though. You could have fought Stanionis. He been a mandatory since last year. If you saying, well, look, fuck Thurman because he was dicking me around, and I don't really want to do Boots right now. I do Stanionis at least, bro. Do something because
Virgil, you could do a voluntary with Virgil if you wanted to,
and that would have did a lot of money in Texas. Everybody know that. Motherfucking Virgil's from Grand Prairie, Spencer's from DeSoto. That would have did a lot of money. And what I see is, this division is dying on the vine because you have all the belts that people would want to fight for. Stanionis don't get a shot without you. Virgil don't get a shot without you. Ennis don't get a shot without you, and Crawford don't get a shot without you. And you MIA. That's the story of him since the car accident. So it's like, if I'm going to be real and I'm going to assign a blame to somebody, I got to put it on Errol, man. It's either you don't want to fight, which is what I'm leaning, or maybe you not as in shape as they saying, and the depth of your injuries is worse than we realize. But it got to be a reason. If you a cash cow, then go get some cash, bro. You ain't making no fucking cash not fighting. And nothing is happening.
Yeah, man. And I think long term, just to kind of wrap this part of the subject up for this live today, man, is that you have a duty as a world champion to defend your belts on a regular basis. And we're going on over a year now that Spence has not defended his belts. The only fight he's been rumored to have that was realistically possible at the time that it was going to happen was a fight where he wouldn't even be having to defend his belts. So, unfortunately, I like Spence as a fighter. I like his style. I think that he's a very talented guy. That's the reason he's on my pound for pound list. So for everybody in my comments and everybody in my Twitter feed that wants to say that I'm hating on the dude, I can't hate on somebody I'm marking in my top 10. But you got to be more active. You got to be fighting. And if you're not fighting the top guy or the second best guy in the division, you got to be fighting somebody that's a contender for your belts. And if you're not doing that, then you got to just drop the belts and just fight for the money. Take the Gervonta route. Gervonta don't care about his belts because he ain't got none. So he just fighting who he wants to fight for as much money as he can make, and he can go that route. And that could be cool because there's a lot of people, obviously, that don't have an issue with it. Gervonta is arguably the most popular American-born fighter right now. It's working for him because he's not obligated to fight anybody he doesn't want to have to fight, but at least he's fighting somebody, and he's not holding up the division for guys that want to win the belts. That's my only thing. There's guys in this queue that want to fight for those belts, and they're not getting that opportunity because it seems like right now he's just good waiting on whenever they're going to be able to make the Terrence fight or make a fight that's worth enough money to him that he's holding up other guys' opportunities. So
I think he really just waiting on the Crawford fight. That's what I really think it is. I don't think it's nothing else to it. I know he be in the gym damn near every day. I don't care what his weight is because I follow him. He works out damn near every day. But I really, this is my personal opinion, I think he just waiting on the Crawford fight. Now, if he don't get that fight, I think that him versus Boots will be a big fight, just like Gervonta and Tank. I mean Gervonta and Ryan. I'm sorry. I think it'll be to that magnitude because you got to understand people from up that way in DC and stuff. They really rock with Boots, and of course the fight will probably be somewhere in Las Vegas or maybe even Dallas, and I think that'll bring a big crowd, man. So I think, in my opinion, that'll be his best next move.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a lot of options. We just need to see one. That's the end of the deal with this, man. I mean, Crawford is the best option, but it's probably not going to happen right away. It may happen eventually, but maybe it doesn't happen right away. But we need to, I mean, you're a fighter. You need to be in the ring. You just collecting rust. It's not helping you get to where you need to get to as far as, being at peak value, because that's the first thing people are going to say if they try to make this Crawford fight next is, well, Crawford had a warm-up fight. He was more sharp. He had a chance to kind of get himself back into the groove of things. Spence didn't get to do that. And that's why if he loses the fight, that's going to be a reason. And nobody wants to hear that, man.
But that's the other thing that like, if he's, it's just, I'm just kind of tired of it because welterweight is where we got Trinidad versus De La Hoya, Mayweather, Pacquiao. I mean, like, just a whole fucking lineage of fucking fights. This is the first era of boxing I seen where both welterweight and middleweight is duds. Good and well, normally all the hot fights is coming out of them weights, welterweight and middleweight. All the hot fights, aside from heavyweight, welterweight and middleweight is the glamour weights. And I got to put it on air. We're like, nah, fam, like this is crazy. You not fighting. And I see other guys that got the same number of belts you got with the same number of mandatories, but they don't even have the popularity you have, and they still fighting, getting shit done, and getting out there and doing what the fuck a champion supposed to do. So, and look, you could have had a run out with Thurman in January or a run out with Stanionis in January. Like, all right, fine. Everything fell apart last year. Fine. Do a fight for January or February. And remember, that's what the fuck they were saying. They're saying Thurman for the first quarter of this year. Nothing happened. At some point, you got to say, fam, you need to drop them belts because nobody, and he's not going to fight Ennis. I can tell you that. I'll put money he don't fight Ennis. I will put money on that.
He will fight anybody.
I'm telling you that.
Why y'all be trying to run
I'm telling you that fight ain't going to happen. I'll tell you right now, it ain't going to happen.
When he got his last belt, when he beat Ugas up, he told everybody what he want out his mouth.
That was a year ago, fam.
It doesn't matter. He been led on and he been lied to, and so
how can
and he said out his mouth, if he don't get this fight, he might move up to 154.
And when he move up to 54, he's gonna fight Ennis at 54.
Man, I'm a Spence fan. I'm a Crawford fan. I'm a boxing fan. Spence is not scared of no one.
I don't know about fair. I just know he ain't fighting. That's the facts.
Let's just leave it here, man. He hadn't fought in 12 months. There's not a fight scheduled.
T says his actions say he wants one fight. Great, T. Then I want him to vacate the rest of the belts then because he's holding up everybody else's mandatory. If he only is going to come back to fight Crawford, and that's the only fight that he wants, then it's been over a year since the last time he fought. They tried to make the fight for September when they were trying to get Canelo to move off his date. They tried to make the fight for November. They couldn't get the fight to happen then. Then there was the rumor of them having to fight at some point in February. Now there's the rumor of them having to fight in June 17th, and now it's July 22nd. I mean, we're going on almost 14, 16 months of time where the fight has not happened. If that's the only fight he wants, well, then let the young guns get their shot at the belts, and then he can just wait around and fight Crawford whenever the fight gets to happen. Because you can't do that.
This division is dying on the vine. It's literally dying on the vine. Nothing is moving. Nothing is moving. Why? The guy that got the most belts is MIA. And whether it's an injury or the dog ate the homework or the car tires need to get rotated or you need a new car battery or you got to go clean. It's always something in the division. And all the fighters in it, all the fighters in it is suffering.
How long did it take him to fight when he came back from that car wreck?
Over a year.
A year, yeah.
Over a year because the
he had the accident in September of 2019, and he came back and he fought in late 2020.
Late December, and then he was supposed to come back in the Pacquiao fight in 2021, but injury. Another year gone. Then in 2022, he fights Ugas, sits out the rest of the year, negotiations, whatever. It's been a year since that, and this is the story of welterweight. There's nothing exciting happening. Nothing.
I can agree with you on that. Yeah, ain't nothing exciting happening.
Yeah, the one fight that we were supposed to get was supposed to be
that Ryan Garcia situation.
What you talking about? Which part?
I think you said after this fight, this is one of the biggest fights in his career, right?
Right. Yeah. Of course.
I think if he want to keep that train rolling, man, just like he got left out there by Oscar and them, man, I think the great move for him right now, since him and Gervonta cool, is jump on the money team. He young, he still got a lot to learn, like you said earlier. I think that'll be a great move for him right now in his career. Yeah, they say if you can't beat him, join him.
You know what's a better idea? Better idea is for him to go back to Reynoso. That's the better idea.
But then
I'm gonna be honest with you.
He talks some mess about
I didn't really see Joe Goossen say or do or have any effect on him as a fighter in the last two fights he's had with Joe Goossen. I haven't seen an inch of improvement in him since he left Reynoso. I'm gonna be honest.
I disagree. I disagree with Reynoso. He an action guy. You can see that in his temperance and his rhythm. He's an action guy. He needs somebody who's either going to simmer him down. So I would recommend, if you want him to simmer down and be more of a boxer, use his height and use his length, get him to Nacho Beristain. Now, if you want him to utilize his attributes, take him to Derek James, because Derek is good for them boxer puncher guys, those guys that throw straight punches, want to dig to the body. He's good for those guys. I would recommend them. But in reality, and I've always looked at Ryan like this, the problem ain't Eddie and the problem ain't Joe. The problem is you. You the problem. You a bad student. You had two good trainers. You had Eddie Reynoso, that's a good trainer. You had Joe Goossen, that's a Hall of Fame trainer. None of them is able. I was hearing rumors leading up to the fight from good sources. He was only with Joe 3 days out of the week.
Yeah, I saw that.
You know what I mean?
I think Joe said about that too. Like, Ryan doesn't really listen. He does what he want to do. He said that in the interview somewhere.
It's the same shit with Andy Ruiz, man. When he left Manny Robles, who I have a very high opinion of as a trainer, and you could see his works in the young Somalian girl, Ramla Ali. She looked like a different animal under Manny. Andy Ruiz looked like a different animal under Manny. So you got rid of Manny when Manny wasn't the problem. Eddie Reynoso wasn't the problem. You are the problem. Andy Ruiz is the problem, the same way that Ryan Garcia. You the problem. You a bad student. Don't listen.
And see, that's
Let me
why
read this chat from Cool Breeze. Cool Breeze says Ryan should go to Top Rank and build himself back up with new trainers. We agree on half of that. I'll tell you one thing. Ryan's not going to Top Rank because Top Rank ain't gonna pay him what he wants. And also, he gonna get put in there in the fire. You talking
Listen,
about the fire? I mean, they're gonna
listen,
put him in
he
with
needs
Barbosa
somebody.
off the jump.
If I had to say, okay, let's hypothesize that he gonna leave Golden Boy. Let's say he gonna leave Golden Boy, right? There's only one place I think he should go. Matchroom. Why? Top Rank don't have patience for your bullshit. They are gonna put you in there to fight people, and you will lose. You will. He went like, bro, he gonna lose, bro. He ain't gonna beat nobody at 40. You need somebody that has the patience for you to put you in there with him and that guys. Because if they put you in there with real people at 140, you will lose. You don't beat Sandor Martin. You don't beat Jack Catterall. You don't beat Regis Prograis, Subriel Matias. I could go on.
He might not be Arnold Barbosa.
I'm saying it's like you don't have that. That's why you kept hearing me say, like, bro, this dude is a prospect. Fuck, are we talking? He's a prospect, bro. This dude is not. You not there, bro. You not there. Like, nah. You didn't beat nobody that was all that. From the time you beat Luke Campbell, did the opponents get better? No. You're a prospect, bro. Just because you popular don't change the level at which you compete. You are a prospect. You could be a very popular prospect, but you're still just a prospect. And you don't have the chops for Top Rank. Now you go to Matchroom, they find you some guys, some I don't know, some Irish guys, maybe some German guys, maybe the odd Mexican guy here and there, you know, somebody, some nondescript guys. But fam. He got the tools, but you could just see it on him. You don't have the temperance. You got all that height, all that length, and you stepping into your jab when you could just, keep him at bay, bro. It's just, like, look, Lopez is a maniac, right? But Teofimo Lopez said it, and it's true. If you're going to try to beat Gervonta, the easiest way to do it is don't commit. Because these guys that get clipped, what they doing? They commit. They step into the jab and try to bring something over and get caught. That's exactly how you got caught. You got all this height on them, give it up. All this reach on them, give it up. All that speed, it don't matter because you stepping in and you walk close to him. I don't. Somebody told me this years ago. They said that Ryan is going to be the Chicano Amir Khan. And I believe that shit. Like, yeah, I see that. That's what he's going to be like the Chick. Except Amir Khan won titles and shit. He got a couple of good wins. I don't know that Ryan is, son. You just focused on other shit that is distracting you from your job.
And let's be real, man. This goes back to the first thing we said, and T has said it again. So now this is 3 times on the same show. Ryan doesn't seem committed to boxing enough to develop more. The real reason behind that, T, and you know this, just like I know this, he's got money outside of boxing. He makes money on social media. He makes money from his Gatorade commercials. He makes money from his Hummer commercials. The reality is he just doesn't realize that the reason he got those endorsements is not only because he's a good-looking kid, he's a guy who, is relatable, he's young, he's able to relate to a lot of people on social media. It's because he was seen as a boxer first. He was seen as a professional athlete first. And that's the part that he's starting to lose track of. But we'll leave that there, man. Next,
he's gonna be Victor Ortiz, bro. He's gonna be Victor Ortiz. They'll use him in Expendables or some shit. Like,
no doubt. No doubt. He'll be in a Creed 4 real quick. I promise you. Why?
Exactly.
Yeah. Moving on to the next topic, man. I see here Liam Smith says to Conor Benn, "I've just nailed your biggest fight." That's a story that just got posted on Boxing Scene about an hour ago. Yes, Liam Smith, I will agree with you. You nailed the biggest fight, but I think it's kind of ironic that Liam is talking about Nana Boo Boo to Conor Benn getting the fight that Conor wanted, when in reality, if he wins this fight, who's he going to be talking about?
Conor.
So in some sense, he's still going to need Conor Benn. But let's talk about that for a second, man. Let's talk about Conor Benn. Conor Benn has been in the U.S. now, I assume, and I've seen some clips on Instagram stories, some posts that he's put out. He's training in L.A., he's been out there helping John Ryder get ready for this Canelo fight that's going to be happening next weekend. We are less than a week away from Canelo versus Ryder. I assume that, Conor's finding himself pretty well there. I know I saw some clips and posts of him sparring with Ivan Redkach. Who do we think is going to be the fight for Conor Benn? And if it's not that person, who would we prefer that he fight based on his fact that he's training in America and more than likely his fight is going to be happening there next?
I would.
I'm gonna tell you how I feel about it.
Go
I
ahead.
don't deal with boxing cheats, man. I really don't. I don't got no words for him. I don't care who he fight. When you got to cheat in a sport like this, man, and you deny it and don't accept your shit like a man, then I can't rock with you, man.
I'm more cynical, bro. I'm more cynical. 2001, my favorite boxer at that time tested positive for some shit. That was Roy. Roy and his opponent. He tested positive for some shit. Look, I'm going to be real. I think that most people have widely contrasting views when it comes to this. I am of the opinion, the older I get, that most people on boxing are on something. Most people. Tyson Fury, Canelo Alvarez, these guys have tested positive for shit. Oscar Valdez.
I used to be some of their best fans, man. All of them you just named. I used to rock with all of them.
And you know what I'm telling you? That if we look at this shit, if we really look at this shit from the days of Evander Holyfield till now, high-profile fighters, not just the guys in between, high-profile fighters, anywhere from the Ryan Martin level after the Josh Taylor fight in Scotland to the Canelo and Fury level, motherfuckers is testing positive. So I'm of the opinion that, you know what? It's not who cheating. It's who ain't. It's just too many motherfuckers getting caught. Lucas Brown got popped 2 times. Jarrell Miller got popped 2 times. Luis Ortiz got popped 2 times. Stavern got popped 2 times. Povetkin got popped 2 times. And that's just heavyweights. That's just fucking heavyweights. Remember when Jean Pascal was screaming across the table at Hopkins, take the dash, take the dash. You would have swore he was the cleanest fighter in the whole sport of boxing. Fast forward a couple of years. He tests positive for 4 banned substances. Not 1, 4. I'm of the opinion, look, most of the sport is probably on something. And it's just romanticizing the sport. Don't let people see that. They're like, fam, in all likelihood, most of these guys are on something.
Yeah, and I'll add this in when we talk about, your opinions on, banned substances and things of that nature. Ultimately, boxing officials and the people who run boxing, the people who suspend these guys, have made us numb to the fact that they're taking these drugs because they're not really giving them these strong suspensions. So if you're not going to suspend these guys strongly, you're telling me that you don't really care that much about it. So why am I going to care?
And look, this is the other shit. Chris Eubank Jr., right? Last year, the whole shit happened with Conroy. Tests, all the shit. Chris was trying to fight him anyway. So if Chris not worried about that shit, why the fuck am I going to be worried about that shit? He the one got to fight him. And he wasn't worried about that shit. And this year, he was trying to fight him again. If not for the BBBOC saying, listen, we're not going to prove that shit. He was literally going to go to Saudi and fight that man. So if he don't care, you know what that really tell me? You're on something too, because this don't make no sense. Why the fuck would you willingly go in there with a guy that you know was using some shit? Maybe you be using some shit too. You just ain't get caught. Maybe the whole goddamn sport using some shit. Because he ain't the only one that want to fight fucking Conor Ben. Kell Brook want to fight him too. And everybody know what happened, but they still volunteering to fight him. Manny old ass is volunteering to fight him. Something got to give. Like, so y'all willing to fight a dude y'all know has something in him. Maybe it's cause you got something in you too.
I think it has more to do, bro. Honestly, I think it has more to do with the fact that people are willing to overlook some of these drugs because they know that it doesn't give them that much of an advantage in a fight. Because a lot of these guys that pop dirty, they still lose, right? Luis Ortiz, he still lost. You talk about Ryan Martin, he still lost. It's a lot of these guys that, they take these performance-enhancing drugs, and really all it's really doing in a lot of situations is helping them, make the weight easier. Some
of them, like Povetkin shit was definitely some dangerous shit. Osterin is a vasodilator, which means it's going to give you that added stamina benefit. Both drugs that he got popped for, they're both vasodilators, meldonium and Osterin. You know what I mean? So it's like shit like that. Yeah, I see that it's dangerous, but I'm just saying that let's be real. What are the odds that all these guys is on something? They're very good based on what we're seeing. They're very good chance that most of the sport of boxing is using some kind of cocktail of some kind that is specific to the individual to cater to their needs. That if you got a gas tank problem, we got a drug for you. If you got a testosterone problem, we got a drug for you. Because it's too many guys that get caught. It's more guys getting caught now, way more than before. So it's like, nah, man. All these motherfuckers is on some shit. All of them.
And if we're gonna be honest about it, we gotta keep
bringing me
everything
to
real,
to
man.
the panel, man. I'm finna get ready to dip, man.
No doubt.
Talking with y'all, man. Appreciate y'all letting me on your platform. I just stopped by, man. Hopefully I get to catch y'all whenever y'all come back on, man.
No doubt, man. Appreciate the time, man.
No problem, man. Peace.
Peace. Yeah, so I mean, and the thing we got to realize too, Ring Man, is like some of the guys that want to talk about, Canelo, Oscar, they want to talk about, even if you go back to guys like Fernando Vargas, right? You talk about all of these guys that have tested positive for drugs and maybe not received a strong ban. I mean, they fail to mention that Jermell and Jamal skipped out on a drug test in 2018.
I remember that.
I just thought about that while we were talking about this, and I'm looking at the story now. It says that both of them skipped out on a WBC mandated drug test through VADA. Now, I'm sure that they made up the test, but obviously people have these rumors going around that, well, maybe they missed the test because they were cycling off or whatever. But I mean, if you're in a situation where you're in a clean boxing program, you already know. I think they give you 24 hours notice. I think it's 24 hours notice before they come and they test you. So, I mean, that's probably not enough time to cycle anything out of your system.
And I'm all for the speculation because I remember when, upon the inception of the CBP, Errol Spence Jr. was in fact ranked in their top 15. The stipulation was anybody in the top 10 or the top 15, they have to enroll for clean boxing program. He did not. As a result of that, he was dropped from their rank standings. So it's just enough there that you can see that, look, we got to stop trying to pigeonhole the guy to get caught when in reality, in all likelihood, a lot of these fucking guys is on some shit, man. Like, it wouldn't surprise me. What Lance Armstrong always, what he said, it stuck with me. When he never got caught. He just confessed. He never got caught. They didn't find nothing. He just confessed. They're like, yeah, at that level, everybody using some shit.
Yeah. So we'll leave that where it is, man. But we didn't actually get to the actual point. So I will before we skip on. Who do you think he's going to fight, and who do you think that he should fight if those are two different people?
I mean, right now it's just about him fighting. I don't even have a particular name. If he was able to fight in ideal circumstances, the recommendation that I would make is Florian Marku in the UK. I would say that because there is a large Albanian contingent in that region of the world, so there's money in it. You and him are pretty much fighting at the same level, so it's a battle of the unbeatens. It's a little fight that makes a bit of sense, more sense to me than Chris Eubank. Another guy who I would have liked to have seen him fight under ideal circumstances is Michael McKinson, who just fought Virgil Ortiz, and he's giving Virgil some problems because he's southpaw. He can move around.
I was at that fight.
He did okay. Like, he got stopped, yeah, but he was doing okay. And you got to put Connor in there with a guy like that so we can rate you against another unbeaten up and coming like yourself and Virgil Ortiz. So those are two fights that I think make sense. Are those the guys I think he's gonna fight? No, I think they're gonna find some nondescript person. It ain't right now for him, given what he is going through. It don't even matter who he fights, so long as he can fight. It don't even matter because they're jeopardizing your ability to fight. The Nevada State Athletic Commission won't give him a license. The California State Athletic Commission said the same thing. Like, nah, as long as you got this shit going on with the BBBOC, we're not gonna give you a license. Eddie trying to get him one through Texas. So it's for now, it's just about being able to fight, not even who you fighting, but being able to fight.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think there's probably three names I would say that are realistic shots that somebody that could get the fight with Connor. I think we're talking about an Alexis Rocha fight. I think we're talking about a Mo Hooker fight, or I think we're talking about a Blair Cobbs fight. I think that those are the three guys that would be good enough, similar in level, decent names in the U.S. You can do those fights in Texas. Number one, because of the Latino and the Hispanic community will come out and they'll watch that fight for those two Hispanic guys. Blair Cobbs is going to talk a lot of shit. You're going to get those two guys in a room together. Can you imagine those two dudes in a room talking mess to each other? That sells itself. So that's a fight realistically that could happen. But I wouldn't be surprised because I know that they've been talking about this, and I don't know how strict the Michigan State Athletic Commission is, but you know that there's a rumor now that Alicia is going to get her homecoming fight in Detroit. I think that might be the play for Conor, is to make him maybe a co-main event to her, since the Liam Paro fight, which I thought may have been able to happen on that card, is not going to happen now because they pulled out Arnold Barbosa from that. So if you can get a Conor Ben Mo Hooker, a Conor Ben Blair Cobbs, or a Conor Ben Alexis Rocha fight as a co-main event to Alicia's fight in Detroit, I think that's a decent co-main event for sure.
Yeah, I agree. That seems sensible enough. And hey, we'll see, because another thing is he's trying to come right back. And I guess that's what separates his situation from Fury's situation. When Fury's situation happened, there was a period where he didn't box. And even Povetkin, there was a period where he didn't box. Jarrell Miller, there was a period where he didn't box. So with Conor, the distinction is that you trying to come right back in the thick of this shit like nothing happened, which is what creates the problem. That, it ain't like you served a year being banned. So we'll see if they could get him out of that. The last I seen was that Eddie said, and that's, take it with a grain of salt because it's from Eddie Hearn. He said that it's very likely that the BBBOC will lift their suspension. So if they lift their suspension, well, it's an open book. Then he can fight anybody. We'll see.
Yeah, no doubt, man. No doubt. So we will move on from there, and we will talk a little bit about this whole idea of Andre Ward came out, and I don't know if you saw the tweet. I retweeted it. He basically was talking about his plans that would have happened if he had not retired. What do you think is the motivation behind Andre continuing this story? I mean, this is a story that he's told. Now, I want to say this first as a disclaimer to everybody that's listening. I don't know if this tweet got posted because he said this in an interview recently, or if this was something that was quoted that he said a few years ago that they're just bringing up as a talking point because it's a slow weekend for boxing in the UK. Yes. I don't know which one it is. But if it's Andre talking about the same story that he was going to fight Anthony Joshua and Tony Bellew in the UK after he beat Kovalev again, bro, what is up with Andre, man? He doesn't need this kind of attention anymore. Why does he keep doing this to himself?
I think Andre's not a bad guy, right?
No, he's not.
I don't think he's a bad guy. But I do see a level of pettiness, that there's a little bit of petty in there. There is petty in there. And it wouldn't surprise me if he very recently iterated these things. It wouldn't surprise me because I always felt like Andre felt underappreciated. He had the misfortune of coming up in the Mayweather-Pacquiao era. They were monopolizing all the attention. Even the heavyweights wasn't getting watched as much as those guys, and everything in boxing was happening in the background of those two. They were the focal point. So maybe Dre feels that, that he never popped the way that he would have wanted to pop. And he got some resentment in there because of that. He bring up these things like, yeah, man, I was going to fight AJ. Yeah, man, I was going to fight Bellew. I think he would have beat Bellew at cruiserweight, though. I do think he would have beat Bellew. I don't. Bro, it's a heavyweight, bro, especially when he was confident at the time and stepping into his punches and really letting them go. Nah, Dre, you a mid-range to inside fighter. What the hell are you going to do mid-range to? You're going to overpower this guy? You're going to parry shots? Come on, B, let's be real. Bellew, I think he could have got, but nah, you wasn't going to beat AJ back then, bro. What, 2017, 28? You wasn't going to beat that AJ, bro. Nah, you bugging,
Yeah. AM Sports Media Jay says Dre is promoting his documentary that's coming out on Showtime. So maybe he did say this recently in an interview where he's trying to play up some of the what if fights. As fighting fans, that's for us to do. That's the only thing that I will say. For us to do. Let us make the hypothetical matchups between you and a guy from a different era. let us make up these fights that you would have had if you hadn't retired early. But for you to continue this story, and I really, it gave me a moment of clarity as to why he went out of his way specifically to criticize Anthony Joshua after he lost to Ruiz. I don't know if you remember this, but he was on First Take. This was I think this was the Monday after the fight, because it was during the NBA Finals too. The NBA Finals were going on at the same time, and obviously Andre's from the Bay Area, and the Warriors were in the finals for the first time, and all that stuff. He went on First Take, and they had a segment set aside for him to talk about the fight that Anthony Joshua had with Andy Ruiz. And he went to talking about Joshua's just a weightlifter. He doesn't use any boxing skills. He needs to get off the weights and go back to boxing training and yada, 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 yada. And I was thinking at the time, I'm like, damn, like, why is he going so hard on this dude who it's his first loss, right? It's unexpected, but it's his first loss. You know, he was a unified champion. He was an Olympic gold medalist, just like yourself. What's the reasoning behind this? Fast forward a couple of years, and he starts telling this same story, that he was supposedly going to fight Anthony Joshua. And what I thought it was, oh, you're mad that you didn't get to be the one to do that to him. Now that you've seen him lose, you know he could lose. So maybe you think that you could have done that. So you're trying to take a little bit of credit for what Andy did. That's the only way I can see it.
No, I agree with you, because I think he's kind of mad at himself almost that he didn't do it. But I'm like, bro, if he would have fought that AJ from that time, the one that's not tentative, I mean, like, bro, you wasn't going to win that fight. What are you, insane? He's going to hit you once and you going to fall, bro. You've been down 2 times. Darnell Boone put you down. Sergey Kovalev put you down. You are bugging because of the kind of fighter that you are. You know, you're not Roy. Roy was a physical specimen. For those that haven't seen the John Ruiz fight, Roy was explosive, which is what made that possible, that he's quick. You punch it, get out of there. Dre, you sit in the pocket with guys. But you gonna sit in the pocket with AJ and do what, bro? What? Come on now.
Yeah. I mean, points well taken. Little quick hit on this. Haney says, I'm better than Lomachenko in every aspect and attribute. Let me say this. It's great to have confidence as a fighter. You have to believe in yourself before anybody else believes in you. But I really, 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 as a Haney fan, as a guy who likes Haney, I really, really, really would have liked him to say this stuff after he beats him. This kind of goes back to the conversation that you and I had about the Teofimo Lopez situation. Some of the stuff he's just saying, man, it's just unnecessary. The fight is going to sell itself because people who know this fight know how good it's going to be. I think he's just kind of giving Lomachenko a little bit too much bulletin board material with all of the stuff he's been saying recently. What's your thoughts?
I enjoy the shit. Like I'm not averse to shit talk and crazy shit being said, so long as the fight is made. And the fight is made. So, you know, if you're going to talk shit about a fight you about to have, I'm actually I'm okay with that, because the fight is made. We're going to see, you know, you're going to have to get out there and prove that you are who you say you are. And the reason I don't mind it, even if I don't agree with all of it, because I view them as very different fighters. So you guys go about fighting a fight in very different ways. You don't do all the things he does the same way he don't do all the things that you do. So that's why I don't really agree with it, but I'm okay with it, because it's not like he talking shit about a guy that he ain't about to fight. No, he about to fight this guy. And if that's how he feel confident enough to say some shit like that, well, that's more spice to the fight. That's more spice. Like, oh, okay, we'll see if that shit is true. You know, I don't mind it because the fight is made. That's you know,
yeah.
Shit.
Fair point. All right, man. So this is the one thing I really wanted to get your thoughts on. Cool Breeze says he has to show it. I agree with you, Cool Breeze. Devin Haney has a lot to prove. He has a great opportunity to do so. It's a fight that he's talked about since back in 2019 when he was still with Matchroom. He gets his chance, man, and it'll be really, really interesting to see what he does, because if he's able to win this fight, that man can negotiate himself a big bag.
Everybody buy that fucking fight, because if you buy that fight, you know what that does? That gives Devin some say. If he win, right? Let's say the fight do 500,000 buys, just whatever, right? In a vacuum. Well, that's fucking fantastic. Because then he could go to Javante and say, you can't talk to me the way you talk to these guys. I just did 500,000 units. You can't buy the fight. Support. Buy the fucking fight. It don't cost that much. It don't even cost what the other shit costed on Showtime. It don't cost that much. Buy that fight, because if Devin win the fight or Loma win the fight, whoever, they get to say, hey, listen, you can't talk to me like that. I just did 500 whatever. I just did 600 whatever thousand on ESPN. Don't pretend that nobody knows who I am. You know what I mean? Then, we get the ball rolling. Maybe we get Davis Loma, Davis Haney, whatever. But that needs to happen. The worst thing that can happen is the fight don't do no numbers, because then it don't do no numbers and we are where we've been, which is nowhere.
Yeah. Wanted to get your thoughts, man. This was the last topic, and this is going to be the one that I really wanted to hear your thoughts on, man. But Liam Paro, the WBO are now seeking a new opponent for the title eliminator. Barbosa is no longer going to go ahead and proceed with this bout. I think it's safe to say that his management with Rick Merrigan, a guy who's very, very active on social media, he interacts with pretty much anybody that ats him online. I think they're going to try to line him up, and it'll be interesting to see, but I think they're going to try to line him up for the winner of what's the fight that's about to happen? The Josh Taylor, Teofimo Lopez fight, potentially as an alternative. They can say, well, we'll just give it to you as a voluntary instead of you having to fight for it as a mandatory. We all know that Bob Arum has a great, relationship with the WBO, and he's able to kind of stave off any, mandatories for however long he needs to, even if the WBO was to call Liam Paro as the mandatory. But what I also think may possibly be the case, because when was the last time that Arnold fought? I think it was a decent while ago now.
Wasn't that long? Wasn't that long ago.
When did he fight last time?
He had the what was it? The Pedraza fight, I think it was. That wasn't that long ago.
Okay.
That was in the last 12 months. I mean, I know that it hasn't been a year since he fought. Like he was in there with Pedraza. He didn't look great, He did, like he didn't look bad, but nothing jumped out at you that you fighting a guy that used to fight at 130, and he beat him. He did beat him, and he beat him comprehensively. But it just no wow factor. And that was like a few months ago. Like I want to say 2 to 3.
Yeah. So, do you think that they will try to get Jose Ramirez in with Barbosa before that to see if they can try to loop Jose back around into this title picture? Because right now he's out. He's out of it right now.
I mean, I thought about that, bro, but I'm like, those are both his guys. And
I know.
Shelley, I remember Shelley didn't want to put Wilder in there with Klitschko, both his guys. And I just think about that when I look at this, like, does Rick want his guy to fight his other guy? And also, irrespective of Rick, what does Top Rank want? Top Rank gonna want something. They gonna want something. Now, in a sporting sense, the fight makes sense. Like, yeah, you need to fight a former champion, bro. You need to, Barboza, you trying to be something, trying to make a name for yourself and all these things. You need to fight a former champion. That's what Jose Ramirez is, So it is doable in that respect. But I just wonder if that's what Rick wants, because these are both your guys. That they are. Like, do you want your guy to fight your other guy?
Right.
He's always talking shit about how Jose got corporate sponsorship. You can get all the money. Like, all right, bro. So, all right, then. That should be a very big fight then, shouldn't it? Very big fight.
Here's one thing I will say, though, about this. If Liam doesn't get called as the mandatory immediately after the Josh Taylor, Teofimo Lopez fight result is had, people need to watch this. Haney, there's rumors out there now that he may go back to Matchroom. If he goes back to Matchroom, Eddie may make the play to say, hey, I'll get you in this title eliminator against Liam Paro, and we can go back to the table at 140 to get you the WBO title, because Liam Paro is the mandatory. Everybody needs to watch out for that. That's the long play. That would get Haney back into the title contention without having to fight a bunch of other guys at 140.
Or, alternatively, I could see Haney versus O'Hara Davies by way of the WBA to get Rolly's retarded ass in the ring. Because if I'm Eddie, I don't know if I want Devin in there with big old Tosh Jailer. Maybe I want to ease him into the, if we're in a situation where Devin goes to Matchroom, if I'm Eddie, look, let's get this slow kid. He's got a belt. Let's get that, because come on, let's be real. Rolly's going to beat Barroso. He is, and I hate it for the sport, but that's where we are. He is going to beat that guy. He's probably going to stop him. Guy's been stopped 2 times already. If I'm Eddie, man, let's go after him. We're gonna offer that retarded kid a fuck ton of money. We're gonna put it on pay-per-view here on the Zone. We're gonna make it worth his while. And because you can beat that guy, bro. You can fucking Devin Haney can beat that fucking guy.
Yes. And you know this too. Funny story. I'll say this real quick. Our guy Peanut on Twitter. He said the other day that he would pick Rolly to beat Ryan if they fought. I said, bro, you have to be joking me. You have to be joking. There's nothing that Rolly does better than Ryan, and that says a lot because Ryan is not great at a bunch of things right now.
Yeah, but see, I had a stance similar to yours. I did. But what this fight exposed is that he don't have the poise and the calm that Shakur have to wait, just wait, work your jab and wait. So it's like, if Rolly do his Rolly book bag shit, I could see Ryan engaging him. And if you engage him, maybe you do get clipped.
Yeah.
Because he don't have the poise to chill, jab, feint, just chill and wait and work. But wait, he the one that jumped the gun in the second round. It's like, what the hell are you doing, bro? The fucking fight just started. All the really, really good guys like Terrence and all these guys, they'll wait first 2 rounds like, fuck that shit, jab, jab, jab. We ain't doing shit right now, jab, jab, jab. This guy, you want to go home early? Oh, okay. Go home early then.
Right, yeah. Great points. Lastly, appreciate everybody coming on today. Letitia McCulley says, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. I joined just to listen. Felt the show has been very balanced today about boxing. Thank you for listening. Thank you, T-Word, for commenting as well, my man, my co-host. Thank you again, Ring IQ, for being on. Please tell everybody where they can follow you, watch your YouTube page and everything else before we sign off, man.
Ring IQ Boxing Talk here on YouTube, also on Instagram by the same name. On Twitter, however, my name is I Took Elric's Money.
Appreciate everybody for joining, man. Thank you for all the comments, engagement, everything else. Make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, share this post, and we will do more lives like these coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Everybody have a good day and a great Saturday. Peace.